Hi, welcome to episode 2 of the Smart Twenties Podcast. If you don't already know me, my name is Sam. I have a blog called Smart Twenties, which you can find at smart-20s.com. I'm on YouTube, Smart Twenties, Instagram, Smart Twenties, everywhere is Smart Twenties. And today I'm going to be answering a question that I get all the time from my readers, which is how to make friends when you're in your 20s. So before I get into that though, I just want to mention that if you haven't listened to my very first episode, that's probably the best place to start, purely because I am chatting about my story, if you want to call it that, from about high school to now. I'm 26 at the moment. So if you don't already know me from all the places I just mentioned before, go and have a listen to that and then come back, because it'll all probably make a whole lot more sense. So the question I'm going to be answering today is one that has come into me so many times, and I've asked myself this question quite a bit as well. And I'm just going to read out the actual question that I got from one of my readers, Reen. I think her name's pronounced R-E-N-E. But it really typifies a lot of the questions I get. They all seem to be very similar. And I think the thing with making friends in your 20s is that so many of us feel like we're the only one who's struggling with it. And it's also one of those things, like, it's kind of scary to ask for advice about it in person, because it's kind of like you're admitting that you don't have friends and that you're a loser or something like that, which is totally not the case. I think a lot of people really struggle to make friends when they're in their 20s, because they often like have left school and have left uni or college, and are just in that stage of their life where everyone that they know from school or earlier in their life are all starting to go their different ways and doing different things. If you're anything like me, a lot of your friends are working in all different kinds of industries with all different hours. A lot of them have moved interstate or overseas. So that kind of rules out a lot of friends that you used to have, or just makes it mean that you have to put in a lot more effort to see them. And then it's also just coming to, it depends where you're working, what you're doing with your day-to-day life as to who you get to meet. A lot of people that email me say that they struggle with this, particularly when they themselves have moved interstate or overseas and left their support network and their usual friends and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I totally get it. And I'm going to read the email that I got, like the little snippet of it that relates to this. So Reen said, I think I have two big struggles. I'm just going to be mentioning one of them, but the other one was relating to work and not feeling passionate about that. So she said, how to make time for friends is one of her biggest struggles, especially since I like spending time with my boyfriend. I think I spend so much time with my boyfriend because he's my best friend too, and I love spending time with him, but I've noticed myself missing hanging out with my friends. My only problem is that I've moved away from most of them a year ago and struggled to make new friendships. Now that my boyfriend and I are living together, I've been wanting to get out and make new friends and go do social things, since he is a bit more of an introvert. If you have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them. So I did actually reply to Reen, because I always reply to the emails I get. If you want to email me, you can always do that, sam@smart-20s.com. So I think that email, like, I get so many similar ones. There's a mix of, you really want to hang out with your boyfriend, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you want to meet new friends, but you're not sure exactly how to do it, and maybe you've left your friends or your friends have left you. Or not even that, you've just outgrown friendships that you had earlier. A lot of times, I found it myself personally, I think everyone does, that you make friends in high school and throughout uni that you just are more so convenience friendships in a sense, or they're friendships that relate to you having that certain thing that you're doing in common. And then as time goes on, you start to see that you're not really a good fit for friendship, if that makes sense. Sounds kind of weird, but that you'd both sort of be better off spending time with other people. That sounds so funny saying it like that, but I feel like that's how it actually is. And sometimes you just need to move on to new friendships, or you're doing something in your career and you just want to have people around you that can relate to that, or you're doing something in your personal life and you want people around you that can relate to that as well. So I think there's so many so many reasons that we can struggle to make friends in our 20s. I'm not an expert at this. I definitely prefer having a handful of close friends to a lot of friends. But I think that regardless of that, there are different things you can do to really help you meet new people. And I'm just going to talk about a few of my own experiences and different things that I've done to make friends since leaving uni. And I didn't have that big a group of uni friends. I just kind of stuck with my friend that I already had from high school who was studying the same degree. So I didn't really make an effort to meet new people in uni, even though I probably should have. I just had a core group from high school and primary school days that I've loved staying in touch with, and we've continued to grow all in the same direction. So yeah, the number of friends I have definitely decreased now that I'm in my 20s, just because there's a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, that you become friends with purely because you're seeing each other every day and you truly enjoy each other's company, but you really don't have that much in common. Pardon me. So when you move on to different parts of life, it just isn't a good fit anymore. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I have done. I always want to try and answer these questions in first person because I feel like it is so easy to just give out advice about what I think you should do. And like everyone, just whacking the microphone there. Everyone loves doing that, like giving that you should do this, you should do that advice. But I find it personally much more helpful and inspiring when people talk in the first person and give real examples and are also vulnerable and honest and all of that kind of thing. So that's what my goal is with this podcast, with my blog, with my YouTube channel, with my Instagram. I just want to be a real person, and I just want to mainly talk in first person. It's really hard to do that sometimes, and I just want to be like, here's something you should do. But I always try to bring it back to me because I really want to be an example, and I want to practice what I preach and all of that kind of thing. So these are a few things that I have done, and I've kind of written a little list down, but I'm probably going to end up chatting all over the place. So just be prepared for that. Anyway, here's a few things that have helped me. The first is getting out of my comfort zone. I know it is so obvious, but so many of us are really scared to do it. And I've found that a lot of my friendships that I've made in my 20s that haven't been through mutual friends, or even if they have been through me getting out of my comfort zone. I'm an introvert. I love spending time by myself. At the same time though, I go stir crazy when I'm by myself all the time. And I really do love meeting people, connecting with people. I just don't get my energy from people. Like I recharge by myself, but I'm definitely, not super outgoing. Or I wouldn't really say outgoing, but I would say friendly, hopefully. And I love having friends and catching up with everyone and that kind of thing. So I like my alone time, but not too much of it, especially not if, I'd like to hang out with someone, but just don't have someone to hang out with or anything like that. So getting out of my comfort zone, a good example of when I did this was when I got a Twitter message. I'm not really on Twitter. I just don't get it. Like I get it, but I just don't find myself wanting to use it. Anyway, I got a Twitter message from Jen, who's a blogger as well in Brisbane. She's one of my good friends now, but her blog is simplyfiercely.com. And she reached out to me in June of 2016 and said, hey, I noticed we're both in Brisbane and we're both bloggers. Do you want to meet up for a coffee? And side note, should I even go on this side note of coffee? I used to not drink coffee until earlier this year, and then I tried to get into coffee because I was sick of only having tea, and now I feel really jittery again when I have coffee. Anyway, to meet up for a coffee / tea in the city, and I'm like, as I was saying, I'm an introvert, I'm shy, I am scared of what other people think as well. So when it came to deciding, should I reply, should I pretend that I never got this message, like I will barely even know what she looks like, it could be really awkward, we'll have nothing in common, what are we going to talk about? Anyway, I ended up saying, yes, I'd love to meet up. She was overseas at the time, so we met up a few weeks later when she was back in Brisbane, and I reached out to her a few weeks later and I was like, hey, when are you back? Just because I know it would have been so easy to let it just slide and to be like, oh yeah, we should meet, but never actually do it. So I was like, okay, I really want this to happen just so that I can meet other bloggers. I'm not going to be talking about blogging friendships, by the way, anytime after this, just for this one example. So I reached out to Jen. We ended up choosing a time to meet up, and we met up in the city here in Brisbane in West End. And we just became such good friends. I don't know if it was just because both of us didn't really have anyone else that we could talk to about blogging stuff in real life. I know there's so many amazing supportive blogging communities online, but it's just not the same as chatting to someone in person in the flesh. So we got along so well, and I know it could have been so awkward, but it just wasn't, and I'm so glad that I took the chance. And if it had been awkward, then we could just leave, and like there would have been nothing bad that would happen except feeling uncomfortable for a couple of hours. We ended up staying there for 4 hours chatting about blogging, and I convinced her to make an online course at the same time as me, and we ended up meeting up basically every single weekend at the state library to create our courses together. And it was incredibly helpful for me and for Jen as well, just to have another person who was going through the same thing, because it was quite an emotional roller coaster creating an online course, because you have to basically say that you are good enough. And because I don't have any actual qualifications around any of the stuff I talk about, I can get quite a bit of imposter syndrome, and I know that's purely 100% in my mind, and I'm getting better at giving myself permission to really just say, yes, I do know a lot about all of this stuff and I do have valuable experience to share. But this time last year, I was a much less confident person. I never would have imagined that I would have a YouTube channel and a podcast and all of this. So yeah, I've definitely grown a lot in the last year, but having Jen and coming from her reaching out to me to meet up as well, which is something I wanted to mention. Like, she reached out to me. It wasn't like we met, like she went out of her way, and sometimes you really do have to go out of your way because of the internet as well. When it comes to blogging friends, you can really get a feel for a person from their blog, so she could probably tell already that would get along quite well, but then you never know what someone's like in person. So yeah, so that's one way that I have made a friend in my 20s. The other way I made friends, it's really weird to talk about this subject, but anyway, was going on exchange. So I went to Montreal in 2013 for a semester and studied there, and it was such an amazing experience, but I was absolutely shitting myself before I left because I didn't know anyone who was going to be there. I was on the other side of the world where I didn't know a single person in Montreal, let alone Canada, and I just decided to do it like for the reason a lot of people decide to study overseas, for the new experiences and to get out of your comfort zone. But I found that right before I left, I just freaked out. When I'm on the plane, basically. So I guess it's while I was leaving. And it actually felt so real on that plane that I was leaving behind Steve, my boyfriend. We're still together now. We'd been together 5 years at the time. Now we've been together for 10, which is crazy. Anyway, so yeah, putting myself so far out of my comfort zone really forced me to make new friends, because if you're in a totally new city and you don't know a single person, it's hard if you don't make friends, and some people do struggle with it. And I would say that It really comes down to being willing to say yes to things, and just also being willing, like if you meet people that you don't really get along with, to sort of move on and try and find other people, because you can kind of end up in this trap where you just want to be polite and you don't want to be like, oh, we should both like look for other people, because then it sounds kind of like a weird relationship when it's not. I don't know if this is making sense, but anyway, I just think it's really so important to get out of your comfort zone. The beauty of exchange is that it's really easy to make those friendships because you're in with a group of, for me, it was 150 other people, very similar age, who are also all alone. Most of them didn't know anyone else. A few people knew other people from their university, but no one really like came with their best friend, or only a few people. So everyone there was actively looking for friends. The only thing with exchange though is often once you leave, it's hard to keep that friendship going because you're in this super intense bubble, and then and you have all of those new experiences in common. And then if you live in different cities, in different countries, and you don't have day-to-day things in common, or even any friends in common, it can be hard and a lot of work to maintain that relationship. But I would still count the friends that I made on exchange as like lifelong people that I could turn to if I needed to. I've visited a lot of them, like gone to Europe. A lot of them are from Europe. I visited them, and yeah, so that was just going out of my comfort zone, saying yes to things, as many things as I possibly could, and just being willing for quite a few weeks to feel very uncomfortable, to have to start new conversations with people that I didn't know what to say. Like, I'm not a person that always knows what to say. I don't know if anyone really is, but I definitely struggle with it, and I'm definitely shy. I think it's the shyness is just, I don't know what to say, or I'm worried I'll say something and they'll think I'm weird, even though I am weird. So yeah, going out of my comfort zone and doing things by myself was the second thing I wanted to mention, to do things by yourself. And that comes, like that applies to traveling. I think that applies as well to going to parties and all of that kind of thing. And like going to the gym, just everywhere. I think it's a lot easier to make new friends when you do things by yourself. So like this question or situation that Reen is in with her boyfriend, she might want to make mutual, like friends that can be friends with her and her boyfriend. But I think if she goes to new places or does things with him there, often when you have, or I'll just speak in first person as I was saying, I find that often if I'm traveling with a friend or at a party with a friend or something like that, I never really meet many new people because it's so easy just to stay in your comfort zone and talk to the people that you already know. But when you're by yourself, it is just, I find I don't want to just sit there and just stand there in silence by myself, especially when you're in public and other people can see you. So like going to blogging conferences, going to parties where I might loosely know the people. Not that I'm not a party animal, I don't go out very often at all, but when it comes to making new friends, if someone invites me somewhere, like a few weeks ago I went to a party that I was invited to by one of the nurses at work, and I know a lot of the people that were there through work but not very well, and I decided to go to that because I really want to make friends with the people that I work with, because I see them every day and work is just so much more enjoyable. I know some people like to keep it separate, but I'm not one of them. So I went to that and I just felt really uncomfortable. Like that day I was like, oh, like who will be there? Like all of that kind of stuff. And I just found that, like, I'm so glad I went. I've never really regretted going to something like one of those getting out of my comfort zone, doing things by myself experiences. I've never found that I've really regretted it, because the worst case scenario is that you don't get along with people as well as you'd hoped, or, there's no real downside to it except a bit of discomfort. And you kind of have to just open yourself up to feeling that discomfort to be able to make new friends when you're in your 20s or 30s or whatever. I feel like this just kind of keeps going. Like this problem doesn't solve itself. You do have to make an effort. The other thing I wanted to mention, the third thing, was being the person to ask. So being willing to be the person, like Jen reaching out to me on Twitter, I was going to say sending an email, but I'm trying to think of like real life, not just blogging examples, because I know a lot of you don't have your own blogs, though you tell me you want them, so please start them already. But I think like, you know, if you chat with someone at work or anything like that, and you know, you kind of feel like you could be friends with them, ask them out for brunch, like be willing to be the one to make the first move. I know all of this sounds like it's dating advice, but making a new friend almost is like dating. You really have to put yourself out there and be the one to ask, and not expect them to ask you, and not to wait for them to ask you, because it's likely they're probably the same, because no one wants to be rejected. And you just have to get used to being willing for them to say, actually, I'm not free. Most of the time people are polite enough that they will just say, sorry, I'm busy, and then they'll just like brush it off. If they really don't want to catch up with you, they won't be like, no, you're a loser or whatever. Hopefully not. If that person did say that, then definitely steer clear. But I think that it really just comes down to getting yourself out of your comfort zone, doing things by yourself. I've also made a lot of friends through the gym, and I feel like part of that is because I feel like I've never been before the kind of person that would do that, but going by myself and then just making an effort to chat to people. And I don't know, it sounds so weird. I know I keep saying this, but it sounds so weird to talk about making friends in your 20s, just making friends in general, because I think a lot of us think that, you know, it should be really easy and natural and effortless and all of that, but it does take quite a bit of work, especially if you're like me and you like having work friends, but often you kind of have to find a way to pass that like gap between being a pure like work colleague and being an actual friend that you catch up with. Though often the thing with work friends is once you leave that workplace, it's often very hard to stay in touch as much as you would, even if all the time you're talking about things that aren't related to work. I just find that like from all the workplaces I've worked at, and I've had friends from all of them, that once you don't have that workplace in common, except for a few exceptions, it's quite hard to sort of transcend the workplace friends. So you kind of just have to like know that that's part of it, or it will require a lot of effort to stay as close with those people. But to then just move on to making new friends, I often find if I like drinking, I don't drink that much. I mean, I drink a lot, but I don't drink often. And I drink vodka when I do drink. But if there's a drinks situation you can go to, often that's one of the best ways I've found to make friends with people, because after that, then you have like an experience that you have in common that you can talk about, and then you can go from there. Instead of normal small talk, you actually have something you've done together. And often as well, people loosen up a bit when they're drunk. Anyway, I've just found as well that can be a really good way. And if you don't know anyone, be willing to go by yourself and to meet new people. I know it's so intimidating, and I always freak out whenever I do it, and always feel like backing out, or whenever I go to a conference by myself, or whenever I do not anything by myself. I'm actually quite comfortable doing a lot of things by myself, like going to the gym and all of that. I don't need a friend. But when I'm in a situation where there'll be a lot of people, like the point is either networking or meeting new people, and I don't know anyone, I always just find myself wanting to either like not go because I feel sick. Even though I don't feel sick, I find myself wishing that I felt sick, or just not wanting to go out of my comfort zone. And it's a completely natural thing not to want to go outside of your comfort zone, because our brains just want us to be in the familiar, safe little bubble that we have. But unfortunately, because a lot of people leave our little bubble after high school, after university, they go elsewhere, as I was talking about before. It is really, really hard if you're not willing to go outside of your comfort zone. So I just wanted you to know as well that like I could give all of this advice and just make it sound like it's super easy, but for me personally, it's not easy. I really have to make an effort, and I only really make the effort with people that I feel like I could potentially be friends with. And it's actually funny, the personality test on 16personalities.com. Also, I'm going to create some show notes. They'll be at smart-20s.com/2. So I'll link this test. If you haven't done a personality test, a lot of my readers, like me, are obsessed with personality tests. And there's a really good one at 16personalities.com. It's basically the Myers-Briggs test. And I'm an INFJ. If you haven't done the test, that will mean nothing. Even if you have, that might mean nothing. But a lot of my readers are a similar personality type, unsurprisingly. But part of the friendship thing that it says for my personality type is that you often abandon friendships that aren't 100% perfect personality match because you just want to search for like the perfect needle in a haystack sort of friend. And I feel like that's definitely true, because if I'm not being like, if someone I'm not clicking with them as much as I want to be, or I don't know how to say it, but I really do only want to spend my time and energy on people that I really get along with and enjoy spending time with. Often it can end up that, you know, you'll be friends with someone and then you find you're just friends with each other just because you have history together, like a history of friendship, and then you're just always talking about the past. I love talking about reminiscing about the past, but I find that with some friendships, you only ever talk about the past and the good old days and whatever, and I can't believe I'm even old enough to be talking about the good old days. When I say that, I mean high school, basically, or early university. But I feel like I really only want friendships where we're talking about that stuff, that's fine, but also talking about the present and the future, and like a lot of focus on the future and goals and all of that kind of thing. I love people that... I am so interested in personal development and personal growth that I really connect well with and want to spend time with people who are learning and who aren't just sort of complaining about the way things are, but are working to change their situation, to change their mindset, or they are at least interested in doing so. And yeah, you can also end up with friendships where you're just both always complaining. And like that's the thing you have in common. This can often happen at work, where the thing you have in common is like a shared, like neither of you like the work or people there or whatever. And you can find that a friendship becomes based on complaints and whinging, and that is not a friendship I like either. So I always try to just sort of hone and curate my friendships so that I'm really just connecting with like-minded people that inspire me and motivate me and support me. Not that they never disagree with me, but they genuinely support what I'm doing and all of that kind of thing, because I don't want to spend time with heaps of different people. I only really want a handful of close friends. So I feel like I can be picky. This isn't just for me, it's for everyone as well, if you want to do it that way. And when I'm saying all of this, it's not like I'm just cutting a friendship and they wish they could still be friends with me or whatever. I feel like it's the same experience or similar from the other side, where neither of us is really getting a lot from it, and both of us would be better to hang out with other people, and we can still be friendly and all of that. But when it comes to like catching up for brunch and that kind of thing, there are only certain people that I want to do that with and make time for. And I would rather, instead of seeing 20 friends once each, I'd rather see one friend 20 times, if that makes sense. Or not one, a few. But anyway, just some of my thoughts. I also thought I'd share Meetup.com is something that I have used to meet people who are doing blogging. I haven't actually used it that much for anything else, but I thought I'd mention it because I have seen that they have a lot of different groups. Some of them are for, if you want to go hiking, if you want to go running, if you're into photography, they have a lot of interest-based groups, and that can be an amazing way to meet people, often because the kind of people that will go on Meetup.com, which is now huge in most cities, so if you just go to Meetup.com, I'm sure you'll be able to find something in your city. The people there, it's kind of like exchange. Everyone's there to meet people. Like, you don't go on Meetup.com if you don't want to meet anyone. So I find like getting yourself in environments where people are willing to meet other people and are actively looking to do so can really make it a whole lot easier. So that's Meetup.com. And then, as I mentioned, there's exchange and other things like that, because often at work, a lot of people there aren't really interested in creating friends. They just want to get in, get out, and sure, like, they'll have a chat to you, but they're not really interested in friendships. And then there are people like me who are interested in being friends, and all of that. But I think it is really good to get yourself somewhere that you can meet people who are also looking to meet people. And another thing you can do is join a gym or a yoga studio or something, and then make an effort to chat to the people who are there, because it is like you do have something in common, and it is quite easy, or I don't know if I want to say that, but it is possible to make friends with people there just by, seeing them, and instead of not saying anything to them, just trying to pluck up the courage to say hello and then for it to keep going. So yeah, that's basically everything that I wanted to share in relation to that. And let me just think if there was anything else. In terms of spending time with your boyfriend, Steve and I have the approach where we both have our own separate friends, and we both have mutual friends. Like, we have mutual friends together, but we both have our own set of friends. Like, I guess our mutual friends are kind of all of our friends combined, because we're all sort of friendly with each other's friends. But if we were to break up, he has his friends, I have my friends, and I find that for me, it's really important to have my own friends. Well, because I get better stories when Steve's not there, but also just because it's really important to have those people that you can chat to openly. And Steve, I would say, is my best friend, so I can relate. But I think it's also important to have other friends, both male and female, that you can look to and rely on and hang out with and have fun with, just because it's really important to have other perspectives in life instead of just yours and your boyfriend's, which will often, at least in my experience, kind of merge into a similar thing just over time and hanging out with each other a lot. So I've found that maintaining my own group of friends is really important. The same for Steve, which means that he often sees his friends without me going, and I usually see my friends without him going, even if the other person is free, just so that we can maintain those friendships. Like, we'll come at certain times to each other's things with friends, but we do really make an effort not to do everything together. We've always been like that since we started going out when we were both 16, which is a very different, like, high school relationship then, but we've always had our own friends and our own hobbies and made an effort to do our own things as well as doing things together. So that's something to think about as well, just keeping some friends for yourself that can be friends with your boyfriend too, but to have them as, like, that they're your friends as opposed to his. Does that make any sense? Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to share today. I know I said that before, but then I thought of something else. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you want more, make sure you go to my blog, smart-20s.com, and check out the show notes at smart-20s.com/2. You'll always be able to find the notes, like the notes for the show, which will just have everything I mentioned as well as some extra things to help you. at smart-20s.com / the number of the episode, and I'll always let you know which number episode it is. So excited to be doing this podcast. Also, the other thing I was going to mention is my YouTube channel. Make sure you check that out as well, because I have a daily vlog called 365 Days of Personal Growth, where I am chatting about everything that I'm doing to improve myself as a person on a daily basis. I try to be as open and honest as I can possibly be, and also just share things as they're happening. So like this whole thing that I've spoken about today has been me reflecting on my past experiences, but what I do in that vlog is share it as it's happening. So a lot of things aren't as refined, but I feel like it's useful to share, because then you can see like what it actually looks like to be going through it. The little snippet, it's only about 20 minutes a day, but you can at least get a feel for how confusing things can seem in the moment, as opposed to that 2020 hindsight clarity that we can get when we look back on an experience years later. And I'm sure if I spoke about exchange or any of the things I've talked about today, if I'd shared it at the time, I would have a different opinion on it. So yeah, make sure you go to my YouTube channel, Smart 20s. Yeah, that's all. I will talk to you in the next podcast episode. Bye.